Hello there, very good evening and welcome to Primetime News here on News First, where the people come first. You're joining me, Naveksha Gunasekara. We start off by taking a look at your headlines.
Sri Lanka's election expenditure bill passed by majority vote. Opposition's request not to apply the bill for the upcoming local government election rejected.
මම දකින්නේ මේ ක්‍රියාවලිය පළාත් පාලන මැතිවරණයේ කඩාකප්පල් කිරීමේ අවසාන පියවර හැටියට.
නඩු තුනක් මං හිතන්නේ. මේ ඡන්දේ තිබිය යුතුද නැද්ද කියලා ප්‍රශ්නේ. ඒ පැත්තේ මන්ත්‍රීවරු කියන මේ වෙලාවේ ඡන්දයක් තියන්න බෑ ඒ නිසා තමයි මේ කියන්නේ කියලා.
දැන් ඔබතුමා මේ කල් දානවා නම් අපිට සල්ලි ටික ආපහු දෙනවද?
මට මැතිවරණ පවත්වන්න තීන්දුව කරන්නවත් කල් දාන්නවත් බලයක් නැහැ.
CID investigation underway after 2 election commission officials received threats. JVP and Frontline Socialist Party to counter government efforts to crack down on protests and to delay elections.
මේ රටේ කෝටි සංඛ්‍යාත ජනතාව මහපාරේදී හරි මේ නඩුව බේරනවා. අපි ඒකට නායකත්වය දෙන්න සූදානම්.
පාර්ලිමේන්තුවෙන් එළියේ බලයක් ගොඩ නැගීමේ මහජන බලයක් ගොඩ නැගීමේ අභියෝගයක් අපි ඉස්සරහ තියෙනවා.
Indian External Affairs Minister in Sri Lanka on an official visit. US warship in Colombo for military exercise. Poetess of Sinhala cinema, Dr. Sumitra Peiris, passes away. It is time. New Zealand Prime Minister Jacinda Ardern announces shock resignation.
Will elections be held before the 10th of March 2023? 51 days more.
In your top story tonight, the regulation of election expenditure bill was passed in Parliament by majority vote today. A proposal by the opposition to include a provision in the bill stating it will not be in effect for the upcoming local government election was denied by the government.
We are in agreement with the initial clauses of the bill. However, such a bill was presented on the first day of accepting nominations for an election. That clearly shows it is an attempt to create turmoil and to somehow postpone the election. I am stating this because during the advisory committee we asked the chairman what consequences it would have if this is passed. He very clearly stated that a tumultuous situation will come about if it is passed. We oppose that, but we accept this policy.
We have seen how black money and money earned through unlawful means is used to finance campaigns. It is further evident through certain people representing Parliament at present. Therefore, we agree to introduce a law to regulate it. But they are attempting to fulfill a hidden agenda through this good faith. That is to create uncertain situation in the law and to postpone this election. That hidden agenda is ugly. Include a clause saying it will not affect the election that has already been announced. Our request is for the government to accept this amendment. If this is to be accepted, we will support this bill. If not, we will vote against this.
ඒ සංශෝධනය පිළිගන්නවා නම් අපි මේ පනත සහය දෙන්න ලෑස්ති. ඒ සංශෝධනය පිළිගන්නේ නැත්නම් අපි මේ පනතට විරුද්ධව ඡන්ද ප්‍රකාශ කරනවා.
මැතිවරණ කොමිෂන් සභාව
We inquired from the NEC if this bill will be enacted in time for the upcoming election. The NEC itself said that it will not.
එහෙම අදාළ වීමක් වෙන්නේ නැහැ කියලා. කොමසාරිස්වරයා පැහැදිලිව කිව්වා මේ පනත ඉදිරිපත් කරුවොත් ව්‍යාකූල තත්ත්වයක් ඇති වෙනවා කියලා. ඒක තමයි ආණ්ඩුවට ඕන. කතානායකතුමනි සම්මත කරන්න කටයුතු කරන ලෙස ඉල්ලා සිටිනවා.
මැතිවරණ කොමිෂන් සභාවේ
The chairman of the National Election Commission clearly stated that it will lead to an uncertain situation. That is why we introduced this amendment. I don't understand why the government is hesitant to accept it.
ඉතින් මට තේරෙන්නේ ඇයි කියලා රජය මැලි වෙන්නේ ඒ සංශෝධනය පිළිගන්න. අපි
හරි. දෙවනවර කීම සභාව එකඟද? කාර්ක සභාව. අපි ඉල්ලීමක් කළා තියෙනවා.
The government has rejected the proposal we brought forward to include an provision stating that this bill will not affect the upcoming election.
ඒ කාර්ක සභාවේදී ගන්නේ. දෙවනවර කීම සභාව එකඟද? එකඟයි.
The highly contentious regulation of election expenditure bill was passed with amendments after 97 votes cast in its favour. Only 36 votes were cast against it. The Samagi Jana Balawegaya, National People's Power, Nidahas People's Congress and independent MPs Chandima Veerakodi and Partali Champika Ranawaka cast their votes against the bill. The Sri Lanka Podujana Peramuna United National Party, MPs of the Sri Lanka Freedom Party representing the government, the EPDP, John Senimiratna and Nimal Lanza voted in favour of the bill. Vimal Veeravansa, Udaya Mampila, Vasudeva Nanayakara, MPs representing the TNA, Gajendra Kumar Ponnambalam of the National People's Front and CV Vigneswaran were not present in the chamber when voting took place.
ගරු ඇමතිතුමනි මම දකින්නේ මේ ක්‍රියාවලිය පළාත් පාලන මැතිවරණයේ කඩාකප්පල් කිරීමේ අවසාන පියවර හැටියට.
This can be viewed as the final attempt being made to sabotage the local government election process. First, the delimitation committee was introduced. Then it was said that the election commission maintained opposing views. Then the president summoned the chairman and members of the election commission to the president's office. It didn't end there. The prime minister also summoned the election commission. Then you started saying that you did not have money for an election. Thereafter you brought up the September 2022 staff level agreement with the IMF. However, it was for your eyes only. You said you agreed with the IMF to stop printing more money. That was a lie. Your side is filled with liars. You have printed money that is 27 times greater than the amount required to hold an election. The next attempt made by the government to delay the election is the hapu in a drama. If there is anyone with a backbone in this cabinet, please stand up and tell us whether or not such a decision was taken. If not, are all of you mice? That is an offence that can sentence a person to jail for 3 years. Some from the government claim if they go ahead with the election.
පුදුම අගමැතිතුමාට කට උත්තර නැහැ.
පොණ්ඩයි ඉවසන්න විපක්ෂ 나යකතුමා මම කාලය දෙන්න හදන්නේ
මන්ත්‍රීවරුන්ට
මම කිව්වා මම කතා කරනකොට උත්තරේ දෙන්නම්.
එතුමා අපොහසත් වෙනවා මේ මොහොතේ බොහොම සිම්පල් ආන්සර් එකක් දෙන්න. yes or no? ඔව්ද නැද්ද?
ඉතින් ගේන්න ඕන නම් ඔබතුමා ගේන්න. ඒකට උදව් කරනවද නැද්ද කියන අපි තීන්දුව කරන්න.
ලංකාවේ පුරවැසියෙක්ට ඕන වෙලා
Any Sri Lankan can go to courts over the matter. There are few cases filed with the Supreme Court as well regarding this election. Do not try to impose an assumption on this bill based on whether the people would do the right thing or the wrong thing with regard to their right to vote. The Treasury announced that there was an issue with regard to finances. I will not make an attempt to deny that.
තිබෙන බව භාණ්ඩාගාරය විසින් ප්‍රකාශ කළා තියෙනවා. ඉතින් රජය ගෙනියන පාර්ශවයේ හැටියට රජය වෙනුවෙන් එහෙම දෙයක් නැහැ කියලා කියන්න මම උත්සාහ දරන්නේ නැහැ. මේ පාර්ලිමේන්තුව
The parliament has become a tool for the executive. An unseen force is controlling this parliament and it is not the speaker. There is no point in changing this bill at the committee stage in the evening. What needs to be changed is the Local Government Election Act. That act states that petition can be filed within 21 days. That cannot be done today. The objective here is to delay the election.
ඒක අදහස කරන්න බෑනේ කතානායකතුමනි අරමුණ මේ මැතිවරණය කල් දාන්න.
ගෝඨාභය රාජපක්ෂගේ
Lawyers appearing for Gotabaya Rajapaksa were used to prepare a constitution. Are you an attorney? I am ashamed.
You sit down. You sit down. Who had the power to say that? මෙතුමා මම නීති විද්‍යාලයට ගිහිල්ලා තියෙනවා.
I have gone to law college. I have worked on the files. When was the last time you went to court? You're only a politician. When was the last time you went to court? Has any case been recorded? Check the record to figure out if I am a lawyer or not.
නඩු වාර්තාවල 20 වෙනි සංශෝධනයේ හොදනගේ අයියගේ වෙනස් කරුවේ මුළු අධිකරණයම පාවා දුන්නා. මම කාටවත් අගිලි දික් කරන්නේ නැහැ. මම එතුමාගෙන් අහනවා දයාකමකයෙන් අහගන්න ඔයාගේ වගේ පවුලේ කරට්ටුව මුළු රටම අවුරුදු 3ක්.
This country was destroyed in 3 years. The country is bankrupt. I have uploaded my assets on the Transparency International website. Have you done the same?
මිලියන 41ක් ආදායම් බදුලට ගෙවලා තියෙනවා. අම රුපියලටම. ඔයාගේ ගෙදර මිලියන 1000ක් තිබ්බේ.
1,000 million rupees was at your home. Another 1,000 million was found in his house. The group that made this country bankrupt are telling the court that they have no money for the election. You must resign.
රුපියල් බිලියන 10ක් වැය කරන්න බැරි තරම්
The treasury was depleted to a level where it cannot even deliver 10 billion rupees. This group must be sent home. That is why we call for an election. The country is held by a gang of thieves who say they won't go for an election. That is why this bill is brought. The people will never allow this person who became president by chance to keep protecting his seat. They are engaged in devious conspiracy to protect the president's seat. They have a suitable prime minister for that as well. If one is trying to extend his rule like this, you will not be able to do so in the face of an uprising from the people.
කරනවා නම් ජනතාවගේ නැගිටීම් මරුවේ කරන්න බැරි බව මතක තියාගන්න. ජනාධිපතිතුමාට තීන්දුව කරන්න වෙන්නේ.
The president will have to decide if he will go home with his pants or not. Or will he undergo the same fate of Gotabaya Rajapaksa? He will have to decide.
කරුණා කරලා තීන්දුව කරන්න වෙයි. දැන් මේක මෙතුමාලා අද මේක පාස් කළා අදම කතානායකතුමා පුදුම උනන්දුවකින් මේ
You will get this passed today and get it certified by the speaker as well. But what happens next? To my understanding, lawyers are already working on something. We will raise our hands, but what will happen after that? A case will be filed stating that an election cannot be held when a piece of legislation has been passed. Then the election will be delayed. That will be the end of the drama. Every party is placing 12 million as bonds for the election. election? If the election is delayed, will the money be returned? Is there any program for that?
මේ කල් දානවනම් අපිට සල්ලි ටික ආපහු දෙනවද මොකක් හරි වැඩ පිළිලක් තියනවද ඒකට?
සභාපතිතුමනි මට මැතිවරණ පවත්වන්න තීන්දුව කරන්නවත් කල් දාන්නවත් බලයක් නැහැ.
මේ පනත කිසිම තැනක මේ කල් දාන්න අපි යෝජනා කරන්නේත් නැහැ. අපි ඒකට කතා කරලවත් නැහැ.
2 election commission members have received threats and Sri Lanka police has decided to deploy armed guards for their protection.
Nominations of the local government election are being accepted and a police investigation is also underway over an incident where 2 of the 5 members of the National Elections Commission had received death threats. Former senior DIG KPP Patirana and SP Divaratna, both members of the National Election Commission, have filed police complaints about threats made to them. Former senior DIG KPP Patirana said he received a threatening phone call at 3 p.m. on Wednesday demanding he resigns from the Election Commission. The person who made the threat had also noted if the former DIG fails to comply, a family member would be harmed. Former senior DIG KPP Patirana said the person who made the threats identified himself as a leader of the Aragalaya. He had filed a complaint with the Inspector General of Police and the Slave Island Police regarding the threat. National Election Commission member SP Divaratna said he received a WhatsApp call on Wednesday and the caller demanded he resigns from his post. He also said the caller had recorded footage of his house and sent the video via WhatsApp to him. The caller had also questioned SP Divaratna why he did not open the door to his house on Tuesday night. SP Divaratna had filed a complaint regarding the threat with the Kadawatha police.
We see this as a very serious issue because threats are being made to election commission members demanding they resign when an election has been called for. We see this as an attempt to delay the election. We condemn this act and demand the government to investigate it.
අපි දකින්නේ නිසා අපි තරයේ හිලා දකිනවා මේ තත්ත්වයන් මේ පිළිබඳව ආණ්ඩුව වහා මැදිහත් සොයා බැලිය යුතුයි.
Threats to election officers were also raised in Parliament.
අද මැතිවරණ කොමිසමේ සමාජිකයෝ දෙන්නෙකුට මරණ තර්ජනත් ඇවිල්ලා තියෙනවා. මේ මැතිවරණය පවත්වන්නට කටයුතු කිරීම ගැන. එහෙම තත්ත්වයක් තුල තමයි අද අපි මේ වාද විවාද ක්‍රියාත්මක කරන්නේ.
මේ පිළිබඳ පරීක්ෂණයක්.
The CID launched an investigation last night. Parliamentarian GL Piris, do you approve of this? 2 commission members have received death threats. 1 person had entered the property as well. We have not publicized this and handed it over to the police. The chairman of the election commission called me in the morning and I did not answer. Then you would say that the Prime Minister is speaking to the chairman of the election commission. He called me again and I then answered. He said such a thing had happened. He requested protection for the commission members. I told him that he has the power to provide protection to everyone in the commission. Police protection was also given to the 2 members who filed the complaint yesterday.
පැමිණිල්ල තියෙන දෙදෙනාට අවශ්‍ය පොලිස් ආරක්ෂාව ලබා දීලා තියෙනවා. පරීක්ෂණ කටයුතු සිදු වෙමින් පවතිනවා.
The police spokesperson said the CID is conducting an investigation on the directive of the IGP.
The Slave Island Police reported facts to the Fort Magistrates Court. A court order was also obtained to gather information on the telephone number used to make the threats. The Kadawatha Police also reported facts to court.
Sri Lanka Supreme Court extended an interim injunction order suspending the acceptance of nominations for the Kalmune Municipal Council. Accordingly, the order will be in effect until the conclusion of the examination of the FR applications filed over the matter with the Supreme Court. The applications were filed by Ahmad Lebbe Mohammad Salim and Ahmad Rahim Mohammad Azim, two residents from Sainthamardu. The FR was filed claiming that their area of residence belongs to the Sainthamardu Urban Council. However, the recent delimitation had declared that they belong to the Kalmune Municipal Council. The order was made by Supreme Court Justices Vijit Malalgoda, Yasantha Kodagoda and Mahinda Sameyawardana upon considering two fundamental rights applications on Thursday. The Supreme Court Justices once again ordered for notice to be sent to the respondents in the applications, who are the Chairman and members of the National Election Commission, Chairman and members of the National Delimitation Committee, the Returning Officer for Ampara and the Assistant Returning Officer. President's Counsel Nishan Karyappan, appearing for the Sri Lanka Muslim Congress, said that the SLMC will come forward as an intermediary to the applications.
UNP national organizer Sagala Ratnayaka says that although the party is ready for an election, as the National Security Advisor and President's Chief of Staff, He feels that this is not the right time for an election.
I have two hats. One hat is the post of being the UNP's national organizer. When I put that on, I say that our party is ready for an election at any time. On the other hand, I have another one. That is the National Security Advisor and President's Chief of Staff. When that hat is on, I say that our country is not in a position to hold an election.
Sagala Ratnayaka expressed these views when the United National Party handed over nominations to contest for the Colombo Municipal Council today. The Frontline Socialist Party also placed bonds to contest for 6 local government bodies in the Colombo district today.
There is a struggle to win an election. The second thing is that there is a challenge to form a people's power outside Parliament to control local government bodies without just limiting politics to the election.
The National People's Power handed over nominations for the Batula district.
If they don't make room to protest democratically and if they don't give us an election, which is the highest form of democracy, we cannot allow them to shut our mouths and take away our right to vote. If that happens, the millions of people in this country will take to the streets. We are ready to provide leadership for that.
The National People's Power also handed over nominations for the Polonnaruwa district. Meanwhile, the Freedom People's Alliance also placed bonds to contest the local government elections from the Kandy district today under the helicopter sign.
We are against this cowardly move. They are ordering the SLPP candidates to contest from the UNP for the Kandy Municipal Council. We will not betray the SLPP. The real ownership of the SLPP belongs to us.
Samagi Jana Balawegaya handed over in nominations for the Kadwala Municipal Council today.
2 more ministers were sworn in. If the country truly had no money, these are the sort of things that should happen. It's necessary to note that if there is no money to pay salaries, how can there be money to hold an election? That is what we are going to do.
The Samagi Jana Balawegaya also handed over nominations to contest the Dompe Pradeshiya Sabha today.
They can do many things, but they have no money for the election. That is a lie. They are lying to boost their power and increase the cabinet.
In more headline-making news, Jacinda Ardern has announced she will quit as New Zealand Prime Minister next month, saying she no longer has enough in the tank to lead.
This summer I had hoped to find a way to prepare not just for another year, but another term, because that is what this year requires. I have not been able to do that. And so today I'm announcing that I will not be seeking re-election and that my term as Prime Minister will conclude no later than the 7th of February. This has been the most fulfilling 5.5 years of my life, but it has also had its challenges. I know what this job takes, and I know that I no longer have enough in the tank to do it justice. It's that simple. I know there will be much discussion in the aftermath of this decision as to what the so-called real reason was. I can tell you that what I'm sharing today is it. The only interesting angle that you will find is that after going on 6 years of some big challenges, I am human. Politicians are human. We give all that we can for as long as we can, and then it's time. And for me, it's time.
She will step down as the Labour Party leader no later than the 7th of February. There will be a vote in the coming days to determine her replacement. New Zealand will hold a general election on the 14th of October. Ardern became the youngest female head of government in the world when she was elected Prime Minister in 2017, aged 37. And a year later she became the second elected world leader to ever give birth while in office. She steered New Zealand through the COVID-19 pandemic and its ensuing recession, the Christchurch mosque shootings and the White Island volcanic eruption. In March 2019, an Australian-born white supremacist walked into 2 mosques in the southern town of Christchurch and shot 51 Muslims dead. Ardern won widespread praise for her empathy and compassion following the attacks and her decisive moves to tighten gun control, banning military-style semi-automatic weapons just 6 days after the tragedy. She wore a hijab as she met the Muslim community a day after the attack, telling them the whole country was united in grief and swiftly organized a national 2-minute silence. In 2019, the volcanic eruption of White Island off the east coast of New Zealand sent a plume of volcanic debris, ash and gas into the air, and at the same time a group of tourists was on the island. Ardern travelled to meet search and rescue teams. Addressing Parliament, she sought to reassure survivors and the families of the victims. During the time from the COVID-19 pandemic, Ardern was applauded at home and overseas for her skill in handling the coronavirus pandemic and the tough measures her government imposed to deal with it. Ardern even postponed her wedding as Omicron hit the country a year ago, and in announcing her resignation told her longtime partner Clark Gifford it was time they got married.
External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, arrived in Sri Lanka on an official two-day visit.
Following the conclusion of his visit to the Maldives, External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, visited Sri Lanka, accompanied by 4 high-ranking Indian officials. The Indian High Commissioner to Sri Lanka and State Minister Taraka Balasurya welcomed the Indian delegation at the Bandaranayake International Airport in Katunayake. During his visit, the External Affairs Minister of India, Dr. S. Jaishankar, will meet the President, Prime Minister and External Affairs Minister Ali Sabri for talks.
The US Navy and Marine Corps will commence exercise cooperation, afloat readiness and training marine exercise with the Sri Lanka Navy and the Sri Lanka Air Force in Colombo from Thursday for another period of 1 week.
The USS Anchorage is a 208-meter-long San Antonio-class amphibious transport dock manned by 477 crew members, and she is commanded by Captain Keeler D.J. The commanding officer of the USS Anchorage is scheduled to call on Commander Western Naval Area Rear Admiral Suresh De Silva and the Western Naval Command Headquarters. The commanding officer of the USS Anchorage is scheduled to call on Commander Western Naval Area Rear Admiral Suresh De Silva at the Western Naval Command Headquarters. As part of the sea phase of Carrot 2023, USS Anchorage will conduct various exercise serials with SLNS Gajabahu and SLNS Samudra. The ship will depart the island on the 27th of January 2023 on completion of Carrot 2023. Carrot Marex Sri Lanka is a bilateral exercise between Sri Lanka and the United States designed to promote regional security cooperation, maintain and strengthen maritime partnerships and enhance maritime interoperability.
Sri Lankan President Ranil Wickremesinghe said that the time is now for reconciliation and solving the issues of all communities one by one. He was speaking at the 100th anniversary of the All Ceylon Jamiatul Ulama in Colombo.
All Ceylon Jamiatul Ulama, or the ACJU, has been in existence since 1924 and is the religious body of Islamic theologians for Sri Lankan Muslim community with over 7,750 scholars as subscribed members. The objectives of the ACJU are far-sighted, long-run and designed to serve the Muslim community in the nation. Maulana Ibrahim Ismail Bam, the General Secretary of ACJU South Africa, attended today's 100th year anniversary of the ACJU as a guest speaker.
Living in a multicultural, multi-ethnic and multi-religious society, which brings in its wake great potential, and we pray that that potential must be fulfilled in both the countries. Also, it brings about challenges of poverty, growth, unemployment, and infrastructure. We are further living in a world where attempts to blend communities are often accompanied by hatred and divisiveness. Religion and religious leaders play a very important role in society. And religious leaders have to strive to create an ethical society, give purpose and sense of identity to its adherents. Let us be amongst those who will be of benefit to the society and to the community.
First, we need to love the country. We were forced to walk with our heads down because of what Zaharan did. We cannot continue with that anymore. We must be determined that we will never act on external influences. We are not a threat to national security. 2,000 people are still behind bars. They must be released. Today, we are faced with an economic crisis. Let's pray to Almighty Allah to save us from this crisis.
I think now is the time for reconciliation and Sahajivani. So we started by talking to the Tamils, the Sri Lankan Tamils, to look at what are the issues, how do we move towards reconciliation. And that first step has been taken and we are meeting the party leaders again. We've made a lot of progress in the discussions. we will also start discussions on how we integrate hill country Tamils with the rest of the society. And the third one is I want to have a discussion also. We must all have a discussion with the Muslim community of the problems you all face. What are the issues you face now? I think one of the good examples, you take 2018, the Digana riots, we have to talk about it. And we have to talk about 2019, the Easter bombs. All those have to be taken. What led to this? What are the issues? And that's not all. We'll have a discussion among the Sinhalese also. There are groups that are affected. Some are affected by caste, some are hemmed in, society doesn't accept them. So there are many differences there among the problems among the Sinhalese. This is why I want to establish the Social Justice Commission, which will also look at these long-standing issues. In the 75th year that we will all look at becoming Sri Lankans and how we live in the country. And if let us be strong as a nation, let the social justice prevail, let ethnic harmony prevail, and let's have a new economy which will enable us to be a very competitive economy, making us prosperous.
2 new ministers were sworn in on Thursday the 19th in the presence of President Ranil Wickremesinghe. Parliamentarian Jeevan Thondaman took oaths as the Minister of Water Supply and Estate Infrastructure Development. Parliamentarian Pavitra Vanyarachi took oaths as the Cabinet Minister of Wildlife and Forest Resources Conservation.
The Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights said that Sri Lanka must fully compensate victims of the Easter Sunday 2019 terrorist attacks.
Sri Lanka Supreme Court last week found former President Maithripala Sirisena, his Defence Secretary, the Police Chief during his time, as well as the then Chief of National Intelligence and Director of State Intelligence, guilty of violating fundamental rights as they failed to prevent the 2019 Easter Sunday attacks, despite having information about an imminent attack. The officers of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights urged Sri Lanka to provide a full reparation to the victims, including to establish the truth and ensure justice. Spokesperson Jeremy Lawrence, according to the Office of the United Nations High Commissioner for Human Rights, said, whilst no amount of compensation can ever erase the suffering and pain of the victims and families, this judgment marks a step in the victims' struggle for recognition of the harm suffered in their rights to truth, justice and reparation. The UN Human Rights Office called on the Sri Lankan government to ensure that victims receive adequate compensation and that they and their representatives are fully consulted in the disbursement of the funds. Lawrence also reiterated the OHCHR's recommendations to the authorities, who are urged to release the complete findings of previous inquiries into the Easter Sunday bombings. He also said that the government should establish a follow-up independent investigation with international assistance and the full participation of victims and their representatives, and to hold all those responsible to account.
Amnesty International has expressed alarm over the passing of the Bureau of Rehabilitation Bill.
Amnesty International South Asia says that the passing of the Bureau of Rehabilitation Bill today by the Parliament is a significant blow to human rights. It noted that law fails to meet international human rights and drug policy standards, including by enabling involuntary rehabilitation through use of force. It went on to note that the passing of the law will pave the way for further human rights violations and put at risk the life and health of people who use drugs. Amnesty International South Asia urged the Sri Lankan authorities to urgently reform the country's approach to drug control and treatment to ensure that people who use drugs have access to quality, evidence-based and human rights-centered health and harm reduction services, which must be voluntary and community-based. Notably, following a debate on a critical piece of legislation on Wednesday, only 29 MPs were present for the vote.
Dr. Rukshan Bellana, the Deputy Director of the Colombo National Hospital, was forcibly detained inside his office by hospital workers for allegedly making a public statement condemning health workers. However, the riot police had to be called in to secure the safe exit of the Deputy Director. Health workers attached to the Colombo National Hospital launched a protest at around 12 noon on Thursday and proceeded to surround the office of the Deputy Hospital Director. The health workers said they will continue with the protest until Dr. Rukshan Bellana was removed from his post. Sri Lanka police intervened and allowed 10 health workers to engage in talks with the health ministry.
රුක්ෂාන් බෙල්ලන කියන පුද්ගලයා ප්‍රකාශ කරලා කියනවා ශ්‍රී ලංකා ජාතික රෝගයේ නේවාසිකව ප්‍රතිකාර ගන්න රෝගී.
The individual named Rukshan Bellana had said that the cupboards used by resident patients are being looted and mobile phones are stolen by health assistants. He said that hospital workers were taking away hot water bottles as well. No such thing has taken place at the Colombo National Hospital. He is a director who is working on the political needs of someone else. The health ministry understood that the comments made by Rukshan Bellana were false. They decided to transfer him with immediate effect. The letter will be sent to this location.
However, the health workers did not end the protest and the riot police was called in to secure the safe exit of the deputy hospital director. Sri Lanka's health secretary said that Dr. Rukshan Bellana was instructed to report to the health ministry as a security measure. "72 hours ago, in the heart of Colombo, a 24-year-old woman was killed after her throat was slit by her lover. Today, another tragedy was reported from Galevela. Now, Newsfirst is reporting this tragedy, intending to direct more attention towards the issues faced by the younger generations.
Crimes and suicides can never be accepted. However, Newsfirst is reporting the following incident so that similar events are never repeated. On Thursday morning, the bodies of a young man and an underaged girl were found inside a small house in Andavala, Galevela. Preliminary police investigations revealed that the deaths were caused by suicide by hanging. How did this happen? The deceased young man was aged 20 years and the girl was just 14 years of age. Just over a week ago, the young man was arrested by Sri Lanka police over a romantic relationship he had with a girl. He was arrested after both of them fled their homes. The young man was produced in court and released on bail, while the girl was handed over to her parents under the supervision of the probationary care service. However, they had escaped from their homes once more and had been living in this house together. Their lifeless bodies were discovered this morning. Was this a suicide or a murder? Only a proper investigation will reveal the true cause of the deaths. However, the real question is, why are young lives being lost like this? On Tuesday, a young man slit the throat of his girlfriend in the heart of Colombo, and he told police he committed the crime because he could not deal with the fact that she was leaving him. 4 young lives have been lost in 3 days. Shouldn't immediate measures be taken to ensure such tragedies do not take place once more?
There's a change in the way the minds of the young adults are developing. The emotional side of the brain is developing ahead of the skill side of the brain. That too is a cause for these issues. In the education system, the children are forced to become competitive. They are not given proper support from the school system on how to face an issue and solve an issue. Whenever a child is having an issue, as parents and as adults, we need to help them solve the issue. It is paramount that young adults only seek the assistance of a person that they can trust in order to solve their issues, because it is wise to speak to someone like that with experience before taking a decision. If the present day young adults are finding it difficult to control their emotions, and if they find it difficult to solve their issues, if they believe they have psychological issues, they can seek the assistance by calling 1929 for advice.
තමන්ට මානසික සෞඛ්‍ය ගැටලු තියෙනවා කියලා හිතෙනවා නම් ඔබට 192 දුරකථන අංකය හරහා ජාතික මානසික සෞඛ්‍ය විද්‍යායතනයේ උපදෙස් ලබා ගන්න පුළුවන්.
Drifting your attention once again to headline making news, Kalakirti Dr. Sumitra Piris, Sri Lanka's first ever professional female filmmaker, passed away on Thursday morning. Her passing marks the end of Sri Lanka's oldest family in cinema.
Kalakirti Dr. Sumitra Piris passed away on Thursday morning while being treated at a private hospital in Colombo. She was 88 years old at the time of her demise. Sumitra Gunawardena was born on the 24th of March 1934 at the Borulugoda Valawa and was the strong female representation from one of the most popular political families, the Borulugoda Gunawardenas. She received her primary education at Visakha Vidyalaya in Colombo and went on to become the first ever Sri Lankan to enroll at the London School of Film Technique. Later, she returned home to Sri Lanka and her life reached a new turning point after meeting her life partner, Lester James Peris. Sumitra made her debut in Sri Lankan cinema as the assistant director for Sandesha, a product of the late great Dr. Lester James Peris. Kalakirti Sumitra Peris was also presented the prestigious Sarasavi Awards for her involvement in Lester James Peris's Gamperaliya, Deloa Katara and Ahasin Polovata. In 1978, she brought to life the movie Gahanu Lamai, becoming Sri Lanka's first ever professional female filmmaker. With over 10 films to her name, including Gangadhara, Yahalu Yeheli, Duwata Mawaka Misa, Sagara Jalaya Madi Handua Obahinda, and having worked as a screenwriter, director, producer and even editor of documentaries, Sumitra has emerged as one of the country's foremost cultural icons. Vaishnavi, that screened in 2018, was the last movie she directed. At a time when it is considered taboo for women to be involved in arts, the late Sumitra Peris set the foundation for many more to follow her footsteps and achieved what was once frowned upon. As the last of her generation in the industry, Sumitra's contribution to Sri Lankan and South Asian cinema is indisputable. Sumitra Peris, the poetess of Sinhala cinema, may you rest in eternal peace.
The Commerce Day Technos 2022 of Museus College, Colombo was held today.
The topic of the event was the importance of technology in business. The event was attended by the Deputy Principal of Museus College, S.N. Sumanasekara, teachers, students of the college and students representing a number of other schools. Deputy Principal of Museus College, S.N. Sumanasekara, addressed the students at the event. Shevan Daniel, the group director of the Capital Maharaja Group, attended the event as the chief guest and shared his thoughts.
We invented fire and spears and weapons and these things took thousands of years. To go from one technological leap to another took thousands of years. But then the period of time between technological advances obviously has now almost disappeared. It's almost instant now. Maybe because you've grown up with it, you don't quite understand the power and the opportunity that technology has provided young people with. But here's the catch. That power and that opportunity doesn't mean that you delegate your life to technology. No technology in the world can replace what you have within you. And so you must work as individuals to strengthen your heart, your hands, and your head. And that means discipline.
Students also received awards at the Commerce Day.
In sports news, 10-year-old player Thadi Karunanayaka had the opportunity to become the opponent of world favourite Novak Djokovic in the exhibition tennis match, marking the start of the Australian Open, which will be the first event of the year's Grand Slam tennis calendar. Thadi, who is of Sri Lankan descent, currently resides in Australia.
ඇත්ත කෙටියෙන් දත්ත වැඩියෙන් සයිබර් අවකාශයේ කලබන වුවත් සලකුණ News First YouTube channelය අදම subscribe කරන්න. News First ජනතාව සමග.
News First News Alert ඔබේ ජංගම දුරකථනයටත් ඔබ
ඩයිලොග් පාරිභෝගිකයෙක් නම් ඉංග්ලිෂ් ඇලර්ට් සේවාව ලබා ගැනීමට NFU ලෙසත් සිංග්ලිෂ් ඇලර්ට් සේවාව ලබා ගැනීමට NUS ලෙසත් ටැන්ග්ලිෂ් ඇලර්ට් සේවාව ලබා ගැනීමට
And that's a wrap of Primetime News for tonight. For all these stories and much more, you can visit our website, that is www.newsfirst.lk. Thank you for watching. Good night.